Yeah, so it's a great question. I think the key change is going to be that risk assessments are going to evolve from being a kind of static artifact, a big exercise that takes place once a year, to a continuous governance mechanism. So something that teams are going to have to update continually throughout the year. And that's actually going to be a really positive change, I think, because I think that shift from a big static document to an ongoing internal governance mechanism is going to allow risk assessments to inform trust and safety teams in terms of how they're prioritizing different policy changes, and new product launches and things like that. So as regulation becomes more embedded and regulators start to kind of set the bar higher and higher, ask for more information from regulated services, I think that transition from a kind of static artifact to a living, breathing process is going to happen, and it's actually going to turn out to be really helpful for trust and safety teams. But I also think the other way that the role of risk assessments will change potentially is they're not just going to be a kind of task done for the regulator. I think we're going to see them having a more upstream impact as well in terms of investment decisions and kind of corporate due diligence decisions. I think we're going to see investors looking at companies and thinking, are you exposed to regulatory risk? What's your risk posture? So people kind of higher up the stream are going to start looking at risk assessments before making those decisions. So they're going to be a really critical business resource as well as a compliance resource. Yeah, so I mean, I know the buzzword is AI, but really AI is the thing that I think a lot of platforms need to be preparing for. There's been a lot of buzz around deepfakes. We've done a lot of work looking into how you can detect and defend against deepfake facilitated attacks on trust and safety systems. But I think it goes beyond that, particularly as we're seeing the rise of agentic AI. The big question for trust and safety teams is content authentic or inauthentic, and does that matter? How should we respond to that? But also now, are actors authentic or inauthentic, and does that matter? And how should we respond to that? So we've been doing some thinking recently about using a kind of identity management focused lens, to have a look at these newly emerging AI facilitated threats and thinking, what is the subject, the actor kind of performing actions on an online service? What's the object? And we're using that identity focused lens to try and do some proactive risk management when it comes to these AI facilitated harm. So I think AI agents is going to be the big area that platforms should be thinking about proactively. Yeah, so there's a few things. I think one is to think about the why and not just the what. Something that in Ofcom's reporting on the first year of risk assessments, they picked up on a lot was kind of you'd have one safety measure and you'd kind of copy and paste it because it applies to lots of different harm types. And I think trying to go beyond what is the safety measure and think, how does it apply to this particular harm type is really important. So trying to get that increased level of nuance in your risk assessments is a really key practical step. A second thing is having really clear ownership, both of your safety measures, but of your risks. So if you have a particular risk that is evolving over time and something drastic changes, Ofcom will want to know that there's a particular individual within your organization who's going to take responsibility for that. And then finally, related to that, having an audit-ready evidence trail within your organization. So for your risk assessments, do you have records of who has reviewed it? Do you have version control? Are you able to report on that whole process to Ofcom when those information requests come in? I think the thing I'm looking forward to most is just having really candid conversations about what people are finding difficult at the moment. Particularly for me in kind of smaller or fast-growing teams where we are seeing this big wave of regulation come in. It does feel like teams are more and more stretched and more under-resourced. And I think it's great that the regulators are still having a presence at the summit, but the fact that they're going to be slightly separate so we can have those more candid conversations. I think that's going to facilitate a lot of really open information sharing, which I'm really looking forward to.